Well, good afternoon. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to join. It's right now 1 o'clock on the dot Eastern time. So we'll wait a few more minutes and then we'll get started.
Gallery is filling up.
I know. I knew if we waited a few minutes, we'd have a few more people join.
In case there's technical
usually,
problems.
They've not been on Teams in a while. It sometimes takes a minute to get in.
Agreed.
All right, you ready to get started?
I am
Wait
ready.
another minute?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll have a few that'll join us along the way, but we're going to go ahead and get started. And so thank you all for joining us for the Voice of the American Workforce. This is the Contact Center Survey Result Report Out. And then, Michelle, if you want to slip to the next slide, I'm just going to note a few things about the survey before we get started. This is the 18th edition. We've been doing this since 2007. This is the largest and longest running survey of the U.S. hourly workforce. All questions are multiple choice and open response, and it's completely anonymous. The vast majority of participants were hourly workers from logistics, manufacturing, transportation, and the clerical industries. But the report out today is, as I mentioned, going to focus on the contact center talent. So as you have questions throughout the presentation, we encourage you to type them in the chat, and then we will do our best to answer them as we go, or at the end of the webinar if time permits. If not, then we'll reach out to you afterwards to make sure that we get your answers to your questions. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Michelle Crotty. She is the Vice President of our Contact Center Solutions Division. She's in her 21st year with Employbridge. And after several years of successfully staffing for contact center roles and numerous clients, in 2017, Michelle launched our Contact Center Specialty Division, and it has grown to support over 350 contact centers nationwide. And she helps support she orchestrates the ramps from startup to 3,500 associates. And she shared best practices, insights, and she's been in news articles, publications. But she also serves on our panel as the panel moderator, at our annual Contact Center Executive Forum. And that is something that if you've not heard of our Contact Center Executive Forum, I encourage you shoot and put your email, or I'll put the email actually in the chat for you to just send an email to with your contact information, and we'll get the details to you. And we'll have way more best practices and stuff, and we'll share more insights on the Voice of the American Workforce at that time. But today, our focus is the Voice of the American Workforce. And with that, I am going to pass it over to Michelle to kick us off with the agenda.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks for that amazing introduction. You're always awesome. So again, thank you all for joining the event and the webinar. We're excited to share our Voice of the American Workforce Contact Center results. And like Krista mentioned, these are just contact center employees surveyed, not the light industrial or the clerical professional side. So we're going to hone in on this industry specifically. We're going to talk about our labor statistics that we track every month when the jobs report comes out. We're going to share some ED market intelligence with you. And then we're going to also, again, share those Voice of the American Workforce survey for the contact center space. And then we're going to round out the webinar with some recommendations for employers on how to attract, retain, and grow their workforce. So we're going to start with some labor market insights. This is the jobs report that the government puts out the first Friday of every month. And as you can see, last month's survey that came out in May, a couple weeks ago, unemployment did tick up a little bit to 4%. It was at 3.9, so not 3.9, so not much of an uptick. But what's notable here is that this is the first time in over 2 years we've seen a 4% unemployment rate. So when we think about that, that's full employment. We are still in a very tight labor market. The prime age participation rate came in at 83.6%. And what the prime age rate is the ages of 25 to 55 years old. So 83, this is one of the trends that we're seeing grow month over month, which is exciting. That means people are entering the workforce. When we talk about the participation labor rate overall, it's around 62.7%, but we really like to track that prime age. And then we did see job growth at 272,000 jobs last month. That was the economists expected lower. They expected around 175. We beat that. Where we saw the industries that grew were in healthcare, government, and leisure and hospitality had the most jobs added, top three. So again, it's great to see workers coming in the workforce, especially in that leisure and hospitality that took a big hit during COVID. So they're starting to really be at the levels they were pre-pandemic. So I'm going to also show you a slide that kind of tracks what the staffing industry, what our industry tracks on temporary employees. And what you're seeing here is we finally saw in January of 2024, for the first time since March of 2022, we saw growth in the staffing industry. As you can see in 2023, we're seeing a lot of decline. But the good news is in 2024, we're seeing less decline. And when we think about these numbers in our world, this is our indication of whether the economy is maybe softening or heading into even a recession. If I saw these numbers 4 years ago, I would expect we are in a recession, but that's not what we're seeing. We're still seeing companies with cash and it's healthy, and that is still a tight labor market. But we have seen a little bit of softening and decline in this economy. And I'm going to shift now to our EB Insights. This is a pulse survey we do every quarter with employers and employees. And we ask them questions about the economy and the workforce and what is top of mind. One of the questions we asked in our last quarterly survey is, how are you as a hiring manager? What challenges and economic concerns do you have? And you can see we've got 2 quarters we can share, plus January and February. And when we asked this question to the employers, in Q3 of 2023, the top things on their mind was what worried them, maybe kept them up at night, was inflation, retaining talent, economic uncertainty, and a recession. And again, when we fast forward to Q4 of 2023, inflation is still on the top of their mind, but economic uncertainty ticked up a little bit. I remember in 2023, in Q3, we were thinking we were going to start coming out of the economic uncertainty in Q4 and really see a boost in the first quarter of 2024. I think we backpedaled a little bit and that uncertainty kind of crept in, and you can see that in these results. And when you look at January and February of this year, inflation is still top of mind, but we see the increasing wages tick up. And where I think there's a challenge with wages, they're not growing as fast as they were in the last 2 years, but we are seeing companies not increase their wages because we're seeing that softening the economy, but they're having to retain their talent. And the talent is really putting a big pressure on increased wages because they're seeing inflation still high. In the hourly worker, that inflation is in the gas prices, it's in their rent and housing, and it's in their food. And they're seeing tremendous inflation on this, and the wages just aren't keeping up. So I think companies are looking at wages as still being a pressure point, and they're having to increase them to keep up with the inflation. So again, when you think about the jobs back 2 years ago in 2022, we had over 12 million job openings, and now we're seeing that number around 8.8 million. So we are seeing a decline in the job openings, and I think a lot of companies coming out of the pandemic are doing a lot of right sizing with labor so they can control those costs and still have a lot of cash on hand. The other question we asked when we went out and did our EB Insights is, the pandemic changed a lot of the way we, both employers and employees, look at and approach work. And we asked the employers, in response to the pandemic, what investments have you made to continue to attract and retain that workforce? And here's the top answers: creating more flexible work schedules. And when I think about that, I think in twofold. I think, yes, we need to create a flexible workforce schedule for candidates, but we also need to offer that remote and hybrid work. It's still very important to them. In fact, J.D. Power just did a research, and 86% of the customer service organizations surveyed claim that they have a plan to implement permanent models which will allow many employees to stay remote and work from home. So 34%, they're still investing in those type of tools to attract and retain that talent. The other part is increased pay, again, came in at 32%. And then at 30% was more focus on health and wellness for their employees. And also 30% came in at better benefits. And then 29% want to focus on work and life balance. And the thing I would note on this, you're going to see this in the results in the next slides, is that not only are employers working on raising wages, offering flexible work schedules, but they're looking at the emotional side of the job, treating people fair, giving a good work-life balance, focusing on health and wellness. These are still very important, especially post-pandemic. So now I'm going to dive into the actual results of the survey. And when we talk about the survey, we're going to talk about it in 3 sections today. We're going to talk about the questions we asked around wages and pay. And what we're finding is not only is pay important, but advancement opportunities is really coming up as a top response of our employees. What I mean by advancement opportunities is they're now, job seekers find that as a very important piece of the puzzle when they're looking for a job. It isn't always about pay or even flexible schedule. They're really looking for advancement. How can they put more money in their pocket, especially dealing with inflation? The second section that we're going to talk about is how can we treat our employees with respect? While the jobs are better and they're finding the ability to go find a job with maybe more pay and flexibility, how do we retain them? We have to show them respect. We have to treat them fairly, give them something emotionally that they stay for the job and not always just about the job. And the third section we're going to talk about is upskilling and training. And as you know, we still find in the hourly worker, there's a skills gap. And especially with all the new technology that's coming on, we want to make sure that we're training and retaining talent, and we're giving the opportunity to learn new skills, especially for the opportunity to get advancement, promotions, and more pay. So we're going to tackle those. And I did want to mention in the survey that the respondents were about 770 this year. Last year, I think we had over 1,200, and there was a shift in how we actually tallied responses this year. We asked that we only looked at people who took all of the questions or answered all of the questions, took the survey from finish to end. Where last year we would allow some of the answers to be where sometimes they'd answer some questions and not others. But this year we did see that tick down to 770 because we wanted to ensure that we had a balanced response rate. So let's dive into the pay question we always ask every year. What is most important when you were looking for a job? And pay always comes in at number 1. It's why they look for the job, and it's a lot of times why they stay. The difference with last year is we saw this come in at 32%. This year it's ticked up to 46%. So we saw a lot more of our respondents want higher pay. We saw advancement opportunities move from the 4th spot last year up to 2nd. We saw remote and hybrid tick down 1 spot to number 3, and also enjoy work tick down to number 4. It's interesting because when we go and hire, remote work is always one of the things we hear from candidates that they want all the time, along with pay. But I think that advancement is showing and indicating to us that wages are still very important. And if we have slowed in increased wages, we want to be able to show a promotion or a career path so someone can get their wages up. We also, one of the things when I think about working with our clients and our partners and customers, a lot of them want to raise the wages, but they really want to see if it will increase productivity and reduce turnover. So we offer pilot programs. In fact, we offered a client with a pilot program. They increased their pay $2 as well as offered bonuses. And this year they've not had to have any classes for attrition. So it's worked really well for them. So a pilot program would definitely be recommended in this case. The other question we ask is, other than pay, what can a company do to earn your loyalty? How can we retain you besides pay? And again, you see that advancement opportunities at number 1 at 38%. Advancement was number 4 last year. So we're definitely seeing that theme of the advancement coming up more and more. They also wanted at 29% good benefits. They also wanted the company and the employer to be understanding of obligations that come up unexpectedly. And again, that's that emotional attachment. And they also wanted paid time off. And paid time off actually came in first last year, and it did drop out down to number 4. And again, I think a lot of people with the inflationary and the cost going up, they're really looking at the bottom line in their pocketbook. So one of the questions we also ask in the survey is how many of the respondents are actively looking for work or would consider another job? And that response came in this year at 64%. So when we think about 64% of those 770 respondents, we want to make sure we hone in on these. How do we earn your loyalty so we can retain that talent down the road and find creative ways to make sure they don't want to leave our job and go to someone else's, just not only because of pay, but because we've shown them a good career path. They realize that we're going to invest in them, so they're going to stay and invest in us. So shifts is definitely in schedules a big hot topic with contact centers. When I think of how far the contact center space has come in the pre-pandemic day and even further back, schedules were very stringent. We wanted our day workers to be flexible from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Those days are gone, and it's really refreshing and great to see the contact centers embracing flexibility and shift. I think they need to go further. I think they will, especially with the gig economy, but I think we're making good strides into looking at this. When we asked our survey respondents, what is your current shift? That's in the purple. And what do you prefer? And that is the green. And when you think about an 8-hour, 5-day-a-week shift, that's our normal day shift, 74% of the workers are working that shift. But look at the 61% that would prefer that shift. That means there's 39% out there that want flexibility in the shift. So if we look at offering a 4-day week at 10 hours, right now, 3% of the workforce is working that creative shift, but 14% want it. So my advice would be really to look at your shifts, see how you can be flexible, because when I think about the workforce, a lot of times we recruit and we offer a 40-hour shift, and we find that candidates will work 36 hours or 38 hours or 32 hours. And we're scratching our heads going, why aren't they working the 40? And when we go ask them, typically they say because the shift is just not working in their schedule. So as an employer, can you work with them instead of just maybe letting them go or putting them on points? Can you work with them and get them the right shifts so you can retain that talent? The other question we asked is, when do you prefer to work? And this was no surprise. Number 1 was days, number 2, evenings, overnights at 3, and weekends and 4. But what I will say is there was 83% of the respondents are willing to work a different shift, evenings, nights, or weekends, if there is a shift differential or higher pay offered. So if you do look at, you do have a need for weekends or nights, and you want to bring in the talent pool to maybe cover those shifts, look at a shift differential and offer more pay for those types of positions. Regarding paid time off, we did, as you know, one of the questions we always ask is reasons for leaving your job. In a few slides, you're going to see the results from that. And this year, the survey, I'm giving you a sneak peek. The reason for leaving job, the top fourth reason was because they felt burnt out. So this slide is really appropriate when you think about that being burnt out. If we were to offer an employee paid time off or a dollar raise, which would you prefer? 73% said they would prefer 5 days PTO. So again, that would help with the burnt out factor. And the good news about this is it's actually less expensive for an employer to offer the PTO. If we take an $18 an hour employee, the cost of PTO is $900 extra a year. Versus if we increase their pay $1, it's going to cost $2,600 a year. So working with the employee, being flexible in that schedule and giving them paid time off, you're going to retain that talent and you're going to save money in the end, which everybody loves to hear about that. And then finally in this section, this is a question we asked for the first time this year. I love this question. We asked, did you pick up extra work for additional income or spending money at any point in the past year? And we had over 50% of the respondents say, yes, they did. And they also, out of that, 40% of the contact center specialists said that they needed to have a second job in order to pay the bills, or their current job is not enough to pay their current expenses and bills. So again, you're seeing that inflation, because that inflation is high, more workers can't pay the bills with their current wages. And we further asked them, what kind of work did you pick up? And 38% of it said that they did something on a gig platform. So they might have done Lyft or DoorDash or Uber or any of those platforms where it's really easy and flexible for people to sign up for extra work around their current full-time job. So again, we're seeing that grow more and more. 14% said they did some type of work in babysitting or dog sitting or cleaning. So picking up kind of that under the table work. And then we had two areas come in at 10%. They either launched a business on the side or they were selling something. So I always think of, sometimes I see people that maybe are good at crafts and arts and they go on Etsy and they sell what they're making on Etsy, things like that. So again, people are feeling a second job is necessary to pay their bills. That's what we're hearing. And 52% of the workforce actually did this last year. So it's interesting. All right, we're going to get into our second area, which is around unfair treatment. So now that the jobs are better and people are more likely to keep their job and stay at their job, the reason they're leaving their job now isn't because of the job, it's because they're being treated unfairly or not being respected by their employer. So we asked some questions around this to dig in. So one of the things we ask is, what are the reasons you left your last job? I alluded to this in a couple slides back. The number one reason at 26% was, I felt like I wasn't appreciated or I was treated unfairly. This obviously was number 4 last year. It ticked up to number 1. So that's why we're seeing that emotional side of how we treat our employers or employees ticking up, and we're seeing employees really want that fair treatment. The second response was I was laid off, and that did tick up as well. We are seeing right sizing of companies with labor. I think post-pandemic, a lot of companies, especially in the technology space, were hiring in droves to get through that post-pandemic era. And now we're starting to see that right size happen. So layoffs are happening more. And then I found a better job that paid more money at 20%. And then I felt overworked and burnt out. And that actually came down from number 1 to number 4 at 19%. And the other area is when you talk about, I found a job that was better suited to my skills, that actually dropped to number 8 this year. And I think that also is a testament that companies are really watching their hiring needs and only hiring when it's really needed. So there's not as much of our employers or our employees are leaving their jobs like they were in the last 2 years. You know, the Great Resignation, we're seeing that decline drastically. One thing that Remex does, Employbridge and Remex, is we have an engagement tool. So that engagement tool really hits on, we're constantly working with our current employees, and we're making sure that they're feeling good about their current job. It's not a survey, it's actually a pulse survey and real time. We get real time results. So if someone is feeling some type of work injustice, we're actually finding that out in real time and heading it off in the past. So we're retaining that worker. This enabled us to we actually decreased turnover and decreased cost in having to go through classes and hire more people. So the cost of recruiting decreased. So again, if you don't have a type of engagement tool, it comes highly recommended just to be able to see how and what the health of your workforce is currently. And then I love this quote by Deborah Benson: treat your team as if your business depends on it, because it does. And I just love that quote because I think it pertains to any company, not just maybe ours or contact centers, but it's every company really needs to look at their workforce. They are the front line, and treat them with respect. And then finally in this section, I do want to touch on remote work. I think it is something that started in the pandemic, and I believe wholeheartedly that it is here to stay. And so I wanted to kind of touch, when we asked our respondents, do you prefer remote? 80% said yes. That's a big number. And 10% said they would prefer hybrid, and only 10% want to be on site. So when you think about the remote workforce, how far as you as a contact center, how far have you come along? And I can't, I think about this, and when I talk to my customers, there were 3 areas that we see the advantage of remote work. The first area is reduce cost. We don't need as much real estate, or maybe no real estate at all. We aren't needing to, we can get into maybe smaller space. We aren't needing furniture or overhead as much, whether it's no space or smaller space. And what's really great is we can grow quickly. If you as a contact center need to grow your center because you've, earned new business or won new business, you can do that in the remote space, which is a great way to bring on staff quickly and not have to go out and hunt and spend money on more space. The second area is a larger talent pool. So recruiting has really seen, you've seen a tight labor market. Wouldn't it be great to reduce those costs? We all know advertising and candidate acquisition is very costly right now. And when we put ads out for a remote worker, we get hundreds of replies. If we put an ad out for on-site, that goes down by 75% or more, depending on the pay and the location. So again, if you want to widen your net and bring in quality talent, it's so important that you offer maybe a hybrid or a remote opportunity. And then finally, we look at reducing turnover. It's one of the biggest issues. For years, clients have asked me, Michelle, I'll work with you, but you've got to reduce my turnover. Well, I would reply to that remote and hybrid work can do this. It is proven. We've seen not only turnover get reduced, but we've seen increased job satisfaction. We've seen reduced costs with training, and we've also seen client satisfaction. Your customers are happier because your workers are happier. It all plays hand in hand. So I think when you think about this, there are challenges to remote. And I think in the last 2 years, contact centers have done an amazing job by investing to curb those challenges. We do see culture, we have a little bit of challenge with culture, but I've seen gig platforms fix that. Teams, Slack, all the different areas that you can get communities going and talking in the remote workforce. The engagement tool that I had talked about, getting people's real live responses to how they're feeling on the job and engaging with them instantly. Ensuring data security. More and more healthcare companies are going remote because they can ensure their data security. Monitoring agent performance. This is doable now in the remote workforce. Before, that was a challenge. What are our employees doing? Are they truly working or are they not? And so just those 3 areas, I've seen great strides in the contact centers, and I know that it's going to be even more. And then I also wanted to kind of leave you with a thought. When you think about inflation around automobiles, if you're asking someone to come on site, when we look at inflation since 2021, car insurance has increased 51%. Gas has increased 45%. And car repairs have increased 30%. So we're asking someone to come on site, drive. Those are the things that they're facing. Not only food and rent, but those car costs have astronomically increased since 2021 due to inflation. So, and I also wanted to share one of the things we did for a client last year during their seasonality is they decided to pilot remote. They wanted to try remote because they were having high turnover. And they actually did for their season remote work, and they saw a cost reduction of $14 million. That's a lot of cost savings just by moving to remote. And it isn't always smooth, but there are always opportunities to work with technology companies that can help you with all those different challenges you might have. So definitely something you want to look at. And then also from Contact Center Pipeline, one of the advisory council members, Michelle Rowan, she mentioned in her article, people want to have a choice in where they work, whether it be the home, the office, hybrid, or fully remote. If you can give them all those choices, you're going to be able to retain your workforce. We're in the final section. We're going to touch on upskilling and training because as we know, there's a skills gap out there. We also are seeing a lot of technology come on board. So those workers that we're hiring now have got to have some upskilling and training because they're going to have more skilled jobs. The easy, mundane jobs are going away or they're decreasing because of the technology coming on board. So one of the questions we always ask in our survey is, are you willing to invest time to learn a new skill? And as you can see, 97% said, yes, I will invest time. And 54% said they will actually do it without being paid. 43 want to be paid to learn a new skill, but 54 said no. And when you think about that, that's your employee. 97% of the 770 are raising their hand and wanting to learn skills so that they can earn more money and earn stability within their job. And when we ask them, what hours would you work? You can see 3 to 4 hours came in at 37%, 1 to 2 hours, 26%, but even 5 to 10 hours, 22%. So these are great numbers. And when you think about the workforce out there, when they talk about advancement becoming at a higher rate than on earning your loyalty, you want to be able to answer that with some type of upskill and career path. We also ask the questions on what are the reasons you want to learn a new skill? And you can see here 77% is to earn more money. So there's a big driver in that, putting more money in my pocketbook. To gain more stability in my job, 55%. And then to get ready for a new job or a promotion in my current job, 52%. And one of the things Employbridge also asks is, we actually offer Better Work-Life Academy, and that's where the employee can go on and sign up for online credit courses to upskill and learn new skills. We don't charge them for this as long as they're an employee of Employbridge. We also offer a Skills Life Academy, and again, we're not charging them, and this is where they can learn how to maneuver life skills like balancing a checkbook or dealing with work-life balance and some maybe mental health and wellness. So Employbridge was one of the first agencies to offer this. We were the leading in our industry. More are offering it, and I know more companies are often offering these type of credited online courses. So we asked the respondents, if we were to add one of our courses, what would be the top 4? And the first one we got was Medical Coder and Biller. And I'm not surprised by that stat because over 75% of our companies we work with are in the healthcare industry. So when we think about that, if we could get an entry-level contact center agent to learn more about healthcare billing and coding, it would go a long way with their promotion into the healthcare industry and what they're looking for the future. The second one was Quality Supervisor and Analyst. And the third was some type of automation. If your company is striving for automation, they want to be part of that solution. And number 4, management skills. And again, we hear a lot. I think 42% of our respondents said, I want to become a supervisor, a lead, or a manager within the company that I'm in within the next 3 to 5 years. So again, just some good stats around upskilling and training, and the appetite that the employee has is just, as you can see here, 97% want it. Finally, I want to talk about artificial intelligence, AI. As you know, it is talked about in the news all the time. Everybody's hearing about it. We asked the question to our employees, in the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think is going to happen with AI? And you can see here in the contact center space, most are concerned that AI will eliminate their job. And about 1/3 are unsure how AI will change their role at all. This is a little different than last year. Last year, we found that there was much more positive response to AI. And when I look at these results, I wonder how much our employers are sharing their plan of AI in the future. I think at a high level, there's a lot of talk, a lot of investment, but I think that needs to disseminate down to the employee. The employee needs to hear, what is my company doing with AI and how it is going to affect my job? And if you look to the right there, one of the questions we ask is, are you thinking AI is coming with a positive attitude or a negative or not sure? And when you think about it, almost half of the respondents said they have no idea. So I think when you're talking about AI, one of the recommendations we would make is really talk about AI to your staff. Let them know that right now, what I'm hearing from a lot of contact center executives when we attend these executive forums is it's an investment we're making We don't see it eliminating the job. We see it as an agent assist. So I think it's just really important to think about how you talk that way to the employee and inform them so they're not worried about what AI is going to do to their job. And one of the things a question we asked was, are you as an employee willing to use an app on your phone to either do your job or look for a job? And 96% of the respondents said yes. So what they're saying yes to is, I'm willing to go on my phone and sign up for a schedule on my job. I'm willing to go on my phone and actually look for a job and apply for a job. And I'm willing to use an app to clock in and out on the job that I'm doing. So AI is there. It's sometimes they're not seeing it. They're thinking it's going to eliminate a job function they're doing, and it might eliminate an easy one. But we're actually using AI on the work site with our employees right now, and we just need them to understand that and not to be afraid. So let's dive into some recommendations. So when we think about what we want to kind of conclude today and give you some recommendations to take away some best practices, the first one I would say is focus on long-term career paths through an advancement and an upskilling opportunity. And that needs to start when you're interviewing that candidate. What should they expect? How is that onboarding process? Is it positive? Is it negative? Really focus on making it a good experience. When I think about our engagement tool, I talked about how we engage with the talent while they're working. We use that tool at the moment we make an offer to the position. They learn through our technology what the job is all about. They'll do an online orientation. They'll find out what kind of skills they need by doing some assessments and seeing what the job really looks like. They'll learn about their career path, and then they'll also do all the onboard functions they need to do to get hired by us. So it's really important you start from the very beginning, work through during their work, and if for some reason they decide to leave, make sure that you're getting an exit interview, you're getting that equipment back, you're making sure they leave on a positive note. Because we all know that we're going to hear about it in a survey somewhere on Google or somewhere else. So just make sure they're having a positive experience even when they're exiting your company. Number 2, look at your shifts often. See how you can incorporate options to attract additional workers and retain them. When I think about workers, a lot of times, I mentioned this earlier, I would love, most of our hires are full-time at 40 hours, but we don't see the workers working those 40 hours. We want to ensure, let's talk to them. Let's find out. Let's create roundtables. Let's ask our employees, what shift do you prefer? And can we accommodate that instead of just maybe giving them points and letting them go from their position because they couldn't be stringent like we want them to be. And also, I would recommend hybrid, remote, on-site, do it all so that you have that big net out there and you can bring in the talent and you can retain them. And number 3, focus on fair treatment and appreciation. Really explain as a company your initiatives and what's important and how it's going to affect your business. Again, I talked about AI. Create some focus groups. When you think about workers right now, you're trying to implement AI, create some focus groups and let some people work with you on implementing AI. And especially if it's an agent assist, they're going to see the positive from that. They're going to say, wow, this is really great. I'm not going to have to look up 5 different sites to find information about the call. It's going to be right here at my fingertips. That positivity will filter down to the workforce. So you're really embracing your workforce in the initiative of AI and other things that you're implementing in the contact center. And number 4, seek out upskilling and reskilling partners. Look in your community, see if there's an opportunity either at a low subsidized cost or maybe even no cost where you can offer upskilling to your workers. Like I mentioned, we partner with Penn Foster and we offer accredited online courses to our workforce as long as they're working for us. And we also have opened up the Life Skills Academy so we can help them deal with life skills and things that come up unexpectedly in their life. And what that's done is it's helped us retain our talent. We haven't lost talent because you think about it, if they're signed up for a course and we're paying for it, it's less likely they're going to leave that job. Number 5, show respect and compassion for your workers. Seek to understand their experiences, explain the hidden rules, and give second chances. I always say to my customers when working with contact centers, life gets in the way with the hourly employee. Always. Kids get sick, parents get sick, things happen. And that's happening more and more now post-pandemic, because I think companies have really touched into that emotional side of the employee. And I applaud that. And I'm hoping everybody continues doing that because it's really helped retain that workforce. And then finally, the number one reason people look for a job and stay is around competitive wages. Please seek out resources like EV and Remex that can help you show what is the market bearing in wages, in supply. Make sure you understand what's happening in your local market. And maybe if it's something you can't increase the wage, go remote. Remote can be an option to pay the wages you need in different markets, and it will bring in quality talent. So just think about all the different ways that you can increase your wages, but if you can't, what do you need to do to ensure that you're going to keep that talent happy? Give them options, flexible schedule, remote, on-site, or hybrid. So those are our recommendations. Hopefully, if you have any questions when it comes to those recommendations in the surveys, we definitely want you to reach out. We're willing to dive into some market research for you. I'm going to finish on some EV insights. This is something I just want everybody to know that we offer on a basis of either monthly, quarterly, or annually. The Voice of the American Workforce, this is our annual survey like we spoke about. We do peel off the contact centers and do this every year. The quarterly EV market pulse surveys, those are happening now. They're every quarter with employers and employees, and we're just looking at the landscape of the labor force and what everything is tracking. Then the monthly EV economic report, that's our jobs report. The government comes out the first Friday of every month, and we like to share this information with our clients so that they understand what the economic landscape is. And then finally, we are very involved in thought leadership. Krista mentioned in the beginning of the call that we are having our annual Contact Executive Forum in Atlanta this year. We've done this past years. We are changing the venue to the Uptown Atlanta. It will be held on July 25th from 9 to 3 p.m. So if you are in the Atlanta market or near it and can attend, it is a free event. And I'll just high level give you the agenda. We are going to have Casey Kosteka. He is the author of the 7 T Success Systems for Effective Leadership. He's going to be our keynote speaker. Tali Harris with Jewelry Television. He's going to be sharing their elevated customer experience journey. John McCain with FTD will be sharing on building a data-driven narrative to engage your C-suite. And we're also going to have a panel of 3 experts in the field of driving efficiency and cost savings with AI. No executive forum would not be an executive forum without talking about AI. So we will definitely be exploring that as well. And again, that's happening in Atlanta. We are adding an Arizona event next year in 2025. We're looking at February around that timeframe of Super Bowl and the Gulf Waste Management. That will be held in Arizona. More details to come. If you would like to participate in the Atlanta event, go ahead and put your email and name in the chat. Krista will get that invite. Or if Krista hasn't done it by now, she'll put the link in the invite and you can register for that. So again, we want to thank everyone for your time. That was a lot of information. I'm sure I went very fast through that. But again, we know your time is valuable and we wanted to ensure that we touched on all of our amazing results for this year's survey in the contact center space. Thank you. Krista, do we want to open it up to questions?
Thank you, Michelle. Yes, I actually just put a note a few minutes ago in the question and answer section, just to either email questions if you are a little camera shy and don't want to put it on the chat here, or if you do want to enter it in. I haven't seen any come in. There we go in the chat. Hi, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else, any questions? Can throw them in the chat or in the Q&A section.
There was a lot of information.
I know. And so I did, please note that I did put my email in the Q&A section. If you do have a question you didn't want to ask this afternoon, you will be receiving the recording since you participated today. And then if you get the recording and have questions, just reach out to one of us and we'll be happy to assist you. I don't see any other questions. You were very thorough, Michelle.
Thanks, Krista.
All right. Well, everybody have a great afternoon and thank you for participating.